monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised.
Billions of people just living out their lives, oblivious. Choice is an illusion created between those with power and those without.
I drink your milkshake. I drink it up.
Thank you, John Larson. I receive your kind words on behalf of all of our courageous members of the House of Representatives who want the best for the American people. And what we can do that is best for them in the next 24 hours is to pass affordable, accessible health care for all Americans. The best for all Americans is to have 32 million more people to have health insurance in our country. The best for...
Piece of stinking filth.
Shh, say it again, Shal. This is AJ of the InfoWars. Listen to the Shaliak. This is Alex Jones of InfoWars. Listen to Shaliak on the Cold Reality News and Report.
This is the coolest thing I have ever seen.
Well, hello there.
This week on Cold Reality Radio. More accusations against Russia regarding the Skripal case, where both father and daughter are recovering. Some say Boris and the UK mind controllers are just covering up and trying to mask the Brexit and other completely destructive things that are happening over there, much like what's happening in America. Trump threatens Putin, animal Assad over Syrian chemical attack. Russia warns of grave response if U.S. launches strike. Losing on all fronts of the narrative globally. This is what the American taxpayer supports without even really knowing it. Supreme Court rules cops can now kill non-threatening people as long as they say they were scared. Top story on Drudge Report. Trump threatens animal Assad. Fire at the Trump Tower. Breaks out on the 50th floor. 4 alarm. things heating up in the trade war that Trump basically instigated. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, because it's pretty ridiculous. It really wasn't China that just does these things. It's the U.S. government that pretty much allows these things to take place over the years. Welcome to Cold Reality Radio here on the UCY.TV broadcasting network on this Sunday, April 8th of 2018. And it's funny because in my younger days, I thought the year 2000 would be the critical year. You know, Y2K and the things that took place there, to fearmonger, to distract people from what the deep state and their minions are doing at any given time. Back then, I was not very politically aware of these things, so I can only imagine there were things going on that were being overshadowed by the fear of Y2K. So welcome to the program today. As I've said before, through my journey of being aware of what is really truly happening in this destructive fictional creation that everyone in its entirety that's ever been born here, and if you were born here, then the worse the brainwashing is, the truly, truly bad brainwashing that we've all been subjected to. And when that takes place, there's really nothing that you can do except sift through the bullshit. Sift through the lies of what 1776 was. We get that on a daily basis if we listen to Alex Jones, the whole 1776. And all Alex Jones is doing is profiting. At the same time, he's trying to save. So he does have a stake in this. He certainly has a stake in this process. But he is of the families, the bloodline families of the founders, the original founders of the United States Corporation. And you can hear it in things that he says throughout the years. A lot of people have been introduced to the New World Order by Alex Jones via the InfoWar machine. And I'll be honest with you, it was what I needed to hear at the time that I needed to hear it. because not all of what he says is bullshit. You have to be able to figure out. Clint figured it out. Many others have figured it out. I don't think he's like a bad guy. He's just doing it in his way. He's just doing it in his way. And making money on it at the same time. So, can we truly blame him? Can we truly say that he's a complete shill? No, he's just bringing to the surface what's really happening to protect his own ass, which is not quite different than what my intentions were when I got to the point where I always thought, man, there's something not right here. There's something. America is not what we're told that it is. Little things like seeing drugs that are killing people, seeing products that are produced, manufactured, and put on the shelves for people to consume. And when, of course, they consume that, it's there's consequences. There are consequences to the to not being aware, not being able to decipher reality. And it really, truly is, just like anything else, it's a business. And that business, they could profit from us in any number of different ways, without us knowing. Creating a system of care and medicine, pharmacology, but at the same time spiking it and putting that nasty component in there that's going to create malignancies and dis-ease while pretending to protect you from it. So we know that, I mean, it's a design that has gone on throughout history, throughout a divide and conquer strategy, getting a percentage of the people to hardcore believe in the founders, even though, they were slave owners. And that's one thing that Alex Jones will point out, that, that's how he'll protect the founders, his relatives. Because if people knew that at the core of the creation of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and all these things that are still being thrown at us, not only on July 4th, on Memorial Day, Labor Day, all these different points of the year where they just compound the lies. They just compound the lies of what 1776 truly was. Relatives of the British Empire, expanding global conquest, knowing that it would be unpopular. So you have your own family members over here posing as the liberators or the founders of America. And so we have President's Day, and we focus on, who do we focus on? George Washington, mostly. We focus on Abraham Lincoln, the white separatist, who was not about freeing the slaves unless it was to save the Union. And the Union back then is like the Union today. Wall Street, the bankers, the military-industrial complex, the Union. So Abraham Lincoln was working for those who ultimately wished to enslave everyone. And so the social issues of the times back then were what? Slavery. Is this right? Is it wrong? Of course it was always wrong to own someone. But they get away with what they can get away with while they can get away with it. So, bam. What does Abraham Lincoln do? Let's not compound the human trafficking by showing our true colors, but let's implement this divide and conquer strategy that we're about freeing you and they're about keeping you as slaves. And so who would someone who's being human trafficked at that time of the world, what would they do? They're going to gravitate towards the people that are going to give them a chance to live a slave-free life. And there was the white separatist, Abraham Lincoln, who was more about the Union and the very powerful that would ultimately and has ultimately enslaved not only people's minds, but they tell you what you can and cannot do to your body. And of course that moves into the whole abortion thing, where they get involved in the social issues so that they have their politicians or their minions step in and say, now we're going to give the illusion that you have choice with the left and the right, and you don't, just like George Carlin pointed out. You do not have a choice. You have owners. They own you from cradle to grave by taking your money, by setting you up in their tax camps and deciding how much they can get from you, how much they can extract from you before you revolt. But at the same time, let's give them as much entertainment as possible. Let's provide Let's provide the artifice or the jobs, the different fields of specialty that you can get involved in, whether it's computers or engineering, because the world is quite fascinating on a lot of these levels. But who creates the standards? Who says this is how you do something? This is how you do another thing? Those who created the corporations, the standards are. And I mean, when you really, really look at it, when you really, really look at technology the way it is incredible how they get these devices to do what they do. I mean, just me typing in a word, hitting a key, getting a page of information that can be good or disinformation or malformation, and then I can click on this red link here, and then it takes me to one of the biggest bullshit lying organizations that was ever created, the CBS News platform, much like ABC, NBC, PBS, that was bought by Rockefeller, Ford Foundation, all of these different government-owned corporations. But what do they get? What do they get you to believe? They get you to believe that the corporations are so powerful that they get the government to do what they wouldn't necessarily do, which is bullshit, as we have the corporation nation. These corporations would not be able to exist without the United States Corporation and then the Crown Corporation. And everything they do with your money, everything they do with your pension, Clint pointed out, and they're stealing from you. The 1% get the bailouts, and you get what? Attacked by terrorists that they have funded to change the landscape, of reality, so that you're more susceptible to whatever it is that they decide they want to do to you. And so when we look at Russia, when we look at Germany, France, and a lot of these corporations, not countries, but you have to have the country in the description because overall that's how they pull you in. You know, Viva la France. The Russian people have a certain amount of pride. The American people lied for years about the founding fathers and the revolutionary, the Civil War, all manipulated pieces of information to make you think something that never really happened. But as long as they control that, they can get large portions of the population to fight for the corporation and to die for the corporation. You're never, ever going to see over here the documentary about the burn pits. Never going to hear it. Never going to see it. Maybe on YouTube if you want to go and look. But people are not going to do that. Why is Russia showing all of these anti-American documentaries about what they're really doing with your blood. There was a documentary about they're taking your blood, all these different organizations. Believe me, it's actually spreading disease because they're not doing it the right way. Pathologies, boom, spreading all over the place. After they've corrupted your blood with toxic chemicals, toxic infectious proteins from animals. So you are a chimera. You are something, but you are not like they are. Their blood is not corrupted. But they will project, look at all this disease. You don't want this to happen to you. Get your shots. Commercials of 18-year-old kids saying, Mom, did you know that HPV was blah, 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 and you didn't get my vaccine? Why? This is beyond propaganda. This shit'll get you killed. They're not injecting you with love. They get people to believe in a system or to love a system like a nurse loves a system where they believe that they are delivering the cure or to relieve you from dis-ease when they're not. They're doubling down. They're the nurturers that have been turned into murderers for the system because it's prestigious to be a nurse or a doctor or a lawyer. All of these people are being used gleefully, gladfully, because they've achieved prestige. They have gleefully, gladfully become Kevorkian. And now, when they demonized Kevorkian for going around and softly and slowly and as painlessly as possible go in and euthanize someone who signs the page and says, listen, I don't want to suffer anymore, and they find somebody who can do that, then they do it. They do it. But what is Kevorkian doing? He's cutting in on the profits of those who could live another year or two suffering so the system can fleece them and pull more out of them. While occulting more and more of the information that will and could and has been proven on many different levels to cure the chronically sick. But that's all hocus pocus, hogwash, magic bullet stuff. And soon it will not be allowed in any facet of society. You will believe the professionals, the WASPs, and the doctors that walk around like, I'm better than you. And they do. Oh, they do. and they think that they're better than you when in reality they are minions and Renfields for a system of death. And Donald Trump, much like Obama, much like George W. Bush and George H.W. and Billy Boy Clinton, all bloodline members of the families, are there as the salesman selling the lies and the deception of this fictional creation. And what do we get? What do we get? About a week ago, Trump says, oh, we're going to get out of Syria. Let somebody else take care of that. Now new allegations of more chemicals attacks that never took place. And if they did, it was Israel or NATO or some of these other destructive regime-changing forces that want to grab more land, just like they did in northern Africa, in Libya, with their minions like Sarkozy and now Macron and now all these other system maggots that live off of the host. That's you and me, like a parasite. And the news, what the news should say is, parasite Macron, who was elected somehow, who's in bed with, almost directly with Rothschild Corporation, is planning on fucking destroying more of the proletariat. And what are we seeing? We're seeing a continuity of agenda globally. Macron is the French Trump. Everybody that you see that, I mean, you can look at Putin and say, is he the, you know, he's been in there for a while, even when the so-called liberals like Obama and a lot of these other people have rolled in and rolled out through the movie, through the production, the global production. Earth Today. Here's what's happening in this place, this fictional creation. Here's what's happening over here. And now Sarkozy, because of his implications in the destruction and the demise of Libya, he's being attacked and could be, his freedom could be threatened. Let's see how far that goes. Nothing's going to happen to Sarkozy. Because if one of them go down, all of them go down. And that's how it works. So you've got all these different people, especially now with the whole nationalism, the Trump mold, where everybody's just had it with what's going on in America, and all they give you is this, like, I guess it was South Park, shit sandwich or douche. And there's people that will completely and totally just buy in and love whatever it is that he's doing. But it's not going to change. It's not going to change where the ship, the fate of the ship, it's not going to change it one little bit. Wouldn't matter if Hillary won, but here's the difference. Without Hillary, you have the chaos of Trump. So the more chaos, the more order that needs to be applied. And so what do we see now? We see the orchestrated South American push to bring more people that have been disenfranchised and poisoned and or just overall treated horribly by the system. Moving up, now what do we got? We've got National Guard being called to it's actually a mini war, you could say. So you move that down, and then it's going to do what? What's it going to do? It's just setting up the pieces. Setting up the pieces for the final conflict, or one of the battles that will lead up to the final conflict. Now, who gave China all of these, all this power to do, when you look at this and the things that Trump said, like China's been doing this to us for this long now. Why are we blaming China? He should have said the American system has been doing this to us, but he insinuates, so that's enough. But you have to point outward to an external enemy and say, this is what China's been doing to us. No, it's what the American system and how it was designed to destroy the middle class. Chinese dog food, killing dogs, Chinese toys with chemicals that, they know, melamine, that they know the kids are going to put in their mouth and all that other shit. Toxic environment, toxic poisons, paint thinner that kills you if you get one whiff of it, or will damage your body completely if you do at a low level. This toxic world that we live in, whether it be the actual chemicals or the toxic diseased culture that Hollywood is, that Weinstein Corporation is, that all these disgusting, degenerate, godless, fearless, garbage should have died in their cribs folk are what everybody or next to everybody wants. And I used to go and I used to watch the Friday the 13th and the Halloweens and the all those, slasher movies. And I see them now and I'm like, I know what they are. And I'm like, this is destructive. There's no place for that in society. There's no place for those types of movies in society. And the only reason that they are is because they damage your mind. They desensitize you. Because they know how your mind works and they know what it's going to do to you. The only one that doesn't is you. Just any number of degenerate fucking movies and television shows that should never, ever have even been thought of to make into a program, let alone put it on a TV, on a electronic visual audio platform. They're destructive. It's destructive garbage. Destructive garbage. And then you add that to the mentally, chemically castrated, poisoned masses. And we have all these different variations of what is called mental illness. It should be a mental illness for people to think, okay, let's make a movie where this guy in a hockey mask just slaughters like a dozen teenagers. And not only that, let's make 100 of them with the same guy who never dies for some reason. Just never dies. At least Halloween, they stopped at 4 or 5. They're redoing the Friday the 13th. They're redoing the Freddy Kruegers. I mean, these are things that only a sick, godless, degenerate society would allow. I think you just wake up in the morning, oh, let's make another slasher movie. Let's just do that, you know? And as weird and just nutty as the whole, what is that, the Jigsaw movies. And the reason why the Jigsaw was doing all the things that he was doing. I mean, it's just bizarre. The Hostel movies. Now, I watched maybe Hostel 1. I don't know that I watched the second one. But this was a number of years ago, maybe 10 years ago. And I saw what it was about. And there's no doubt that that's happening somewhere. And it's run by these organizations, these banking organizations that fund the child trafficking and the, people, these people, I don't know if you're not familiar with Hostel, these demented people would pay to go torture someone. Whether it's be an American, an Asian, whatever, it was all different classes of people. And the only real satisfaction there was, and that's another mental fucking hiccup, is that when at the end, one of the guys who survived from the group or whatever got the guy or one or two of the guys that were doing the torturing, and then killed them pretty graphically. And then you're like, yeah, fuck that guy. But it's not good. It's not good. This diseased culture is not good. And then I will think back to when people were saying there's too much violence on TV, and there's too much violence in these video games, and there's too much this, and there's too much that. And you would say, oh, put a sock in it. Of course, Al Gore was involved in that with the Twisted Sister thing, where Dee Snider, the lead singer of Twisted Sister, who had a business plan that was working for a while. The music was not good. It wasn't. We're not going to take it, you know. Some of it was like, that's goofy. You could look at it and you could say, you know, they're like Kiss, but a different kind of shtick. But he's up there talking, saying things. Well, I mean, the guy is a smart guy, okay? As far as smart guys go. Dee Snider figured out a way to create a band, tour, make money, and live like a rock star, or whatever that fucking means. But there's Al Gore and Tipper Gore, and they're like, this is not what we want our kids to say. All right, well, you know, maybe. But at the thing, it's like once it's out there, boom. Just like, example, South Park, right, which can be really funny and points out the absurdities of society, is not without its degenerate and destructive effect on, like, I don't even care about myself now, but these kids are watching it. And they're not getting the irony of it all. So when South Park makes the movie with Terrence and Phillip, and the movie, within the movie, the Terrence and Phillip Asses of Fire, and then the kids get into it, and they pay this homeless guy to get them in, and then they start repeating, you know, shut your fucking face, uncle fucker. Then the parents get all outraged, and then ultimately they declare war on Canada. And so it's, you know, we see all of these different things. Now, I realize that watching South Park on some level, it can be very funny, but kids aren't going to get the irony and they just see the disgusting potty humor, things like that. The toilet safety, you know, the TSC, I'm sorry, what is that? The airport security, TSA, Toilet Safety Administration. It points out how fucking ridiculous that they are. But as long as we have terrorism, fall into place, slave. Fall into fucking place. Fall into place. To the point where you don't even really want to travel anymore because you know that they're going to try to stick you through these cancer-inducing DNA destroying X-ray booths. So the best thing that you can do is go there, wear a T-shirt, a pair of flip-flops to protect your feet from getting fucking athlete's foot, which has happened before to me, because they don't clean anything because they're a disgusting, filthy bag of pus organization of security. Don't wipe down the floor. Some people are just fucking gross. But take your shoes off, wear a pair of shorts or maybe just a pair of fucking Speedos and say, I'm not hiding anything. I'm not going in there. I'm not hiding anything. But everybody's a potential terrorist who wants to hurt somebody else. And that's the narrative that gets proliferated. Everything's about terror. Everything's about this. And Trump is exactly what? I mean, it's making complete and total sense now. He's exactly what you would expect. From those who brought you 9/11, from those who brought you all of these other destructive narratives throughout time, destructive events, the whole deal. Because if Hillary was in there, everybody would go to sleep. And you would hear Madam President, Madam President, Madam President, Madam President all the time. But what do we see with Trump in there? Just attacks, 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 attacks. Stormy Daniels, Muslim, Islamophobia, he's destroying the economy with the trade war, all this stuff. And I'm not saying that it's not destructive. It's just that there's certain things that he said in the run-up to him becoming the president that he didn't really even have to say. The reason why he said it was because you need as much chaos as possible, as much turmoil as possible to be able to justify the downfall of the fictional United States corporation or empire. And of course you have all the prostitutes. You have what now you've got the Chappaquiddick movie coming out. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what's the, who approves that? Who approves the so much liberal control? All it's going to do is create more chaos. It's going to create more destructive divide and conquer style rhetoric. And so, as we slip further into this destructive time, this era of divide and conquer and the total people who have lost themselves completely or have sold out or jumped on the Hillary bandwagon or totally immersed in the Trump deception. It's just going to get much, much worse. And I see large segments of society that have no fucking idea what's going on at all. And then you can understand why they believe everything that they're told, because their attention span is that of a small rodent. And they are so consumed with themselves and in general things that don't even fucking matter. You have a female populace that is just bought into and totally consumed with looks and status and all of these different things that one would think really truly matter, but you're under attack. The chemicals that you put on your body to make yourself whatever it is that you mostly so that you're prettier than your best friend or your second best friend. Women are under attack by other women. And I think that is a major issue. And men, the chemical castration of that group is just, and then I know a bunch of people, honestly. I work with a lot of people. They're good people at their core. I know that they're good people, but everything that they are is clouded by things that do not matter. There's certain things that I watch or do, and that in and of itself, one would say, okay, well, you're a hypocrite. You talk about this system, but then you go to work every day and you pay taxes that go to murdering and blowing up children and killing them. So we're paying into it. That's the way the system was designed, so that you couldn't avoid it. If you were to participate in it, you got blood on your hands. That's how the system was designed. We have a video game culture that is just consumed most young men. And then when that's not on, then let's go see slasher movies, or let's go see It. Or, as an example, it's just a base of life that is truly ready to be wiped out, because they have no idea what they're part of. They have no idea what they've signed on to, much like their parents and their parents' parents and so on. They have no idea what they signed into. All of the things that we've been told are fabricated lies and bullshit that has stood the test of time. Has stood the test of time. And so again, as we move further and further towards world war, on many fronts, we have, the lies of dozens dead in suspected chemical weapons attack. It's still pushing and pushing and pushing the chemical attacks, pushing the Skripal thing. And I'm not saying that Russia is I believe that it's being orchestrated from every aspect. And now we're seeing so much as it rolls out. So let's see what we got here. I'm going to play a little bit of... I'm going to play a little bit of this here.
Back at what's been happening over the last 7 days too. You're watching The Weekly here on RT International. Now, a war of accusations has been raging this week over the poisoning of a former Russian double agent and his daughter. A British military laboratory admitted it could not identify the source of the nerve agent used, although the government has consistently said it came from Russia. RT's Anastasia Chorkina takes up the story.
The Foreign Office has deleted a tweet that it had initially posted on March 22nd.
Analysis by world-leading experts at the Defense Science and Technology Laboratory at Porton Down made clear that this was a military-grade Novichok nerve agent produced in Russia.
Now, a couple of days before that, Boris Johnson, the UK Foreign Secretary, also said that there's no doubt that Russia was behind what happened.
You argue that the source of Novichok is Russia. How did you manage to find it out so quickly?
When I look at the evidence, I mean, the people from Porton Down, they were absolutely categorical. And I asked the guy myself, I said, are you sure? And he said, there's no doubt.
Well, it seems that all of that was going well until when the chief executive of Porton Down came out and said that not only were the scientists not able to prove that the nerve agent came from Russia, but generally speaking, they didn't know what the source was.
We have not verified the precise source.
You have not been able to establish that this was made in Russia.
As I said, it's our job to provide, the scientific evidence that identifies what the particular nerve agent is.
So to be clear, you're not able at Porton Down to say where it is from?
We haven't yet been able to do that.
At the same time, the Foreign Office is saying everything is still the way it was and nothing is inconsistent.
Are you ready to point the finger of blame, Foreign Secretary? Sir, is there now certainly a Russian connection? Is the government going to accuse Russia?
Poisoning of Sergei Skripal is not an isolated case, but the latest in a pattern of reckless behavior by the Russian state.
The Russians.
The Russians are
Russian.
Russia. Russian denial.
I'm afraid the evidence is overwhelming that it is Russia. And
Boris Johnson has serious questions to answer. He claimed on German television that this was a Russian-produced nerve agent, and Porton Down then examined it and said all they could identify was as Novichok. They couldn't say where it came from.
Well, there's also been a lot of criticism on Twitter from Britain's main opposition Labour Party over Boris Johnson's assurances that Russia was behind the poisoning. One asked if Johnson wanted to delete that German TV interview too. Others stressed the need to check the evidence, while Labour MP Chris Williamson called Johnson downright dangerous and said that the Skripal case was being used to divert attention.
Seems to me the government were indulging in political point scoring, particularly Boris Johnson, who raced ahead of the evidence and used this terrible incident not so much as a smoking gun, but more of a smokescreen, really. It was very convenient, wasn't it, for the government to use this as a way of diverting attention from their own difficulties over Brexit and economic policy. Let's be absolutely clear, before we start raising international tensions in this way, this has huge implications. It's far more sensible to take a measured approach and be clear about the evidence, and then act on the evidence.
Meanwhile, both the double agent and his daughter appear to be making a recovery. Back on March the 4th, though, they were found unconscious on a park bench in the southern UK city of Salisbury. British officials stated the pair had been poisoned with a military-grade nerve agent called Novichok, developed in the Soviet Union. At the time, Prime Minister Theresa May said those subjected to such a powerful nerve agent may never recover. When it became clear that both victims were getting better, a family relative, Victoria Skripal, attempted to get a UK visa to visit her family. However, her application was denied. In an exclusive interview to RT's video agency Rupley, Victoria added that she's written May a letter asking for her visa to be approved.
Now the whole world is talking about a political scandal, that at the heart of the scandal are real people. I will put together all documents missing from the application, and I hope that no bureaucratic tricks will prevent me from seeing my loved ones. I ask the UK and you personally to reconsider the decision to refuse my visa. They are scared that I will find out something more, that Yulia will tell me something. Yes, they try to manipulate me. Not the Kremlin, but MI5. I will fight till the end. If I fail here, I will go to the UN.
However, the mainstream British media were quick to speculate over the visa denial. Some suggested the application was blocked because Downing Street feared she was being coached by the Kremlin and being used as a pawn. In the same exclusive interview, she notes that during a phone conversation with Yulia, it did appear that someone was prompting Yulia what to say. The talk took place the day before Victoria applied for that visa.
Ой, слава богу, Господи, Юляш, у тебя все нормально у тебя? Нормально, все хорошо. Смотри, если я завтра получу визу, я к тебе в понедельник прилечу. Визу никто не даст, Вик. Ну и, в общем, я тоже так думаю. Все, ладно. Вот, нет, да, тут если дадут, то мне надо, чтобы ты сказала, что могу я тебя видеть или нет, сказала слово «да». Ну, я думаю, нет, тут сейчас ситуация такая, что я все знаю.
At first, I was happy that Yulia called, but it was clear that she wasn't speaking her own words. She was being prompted. You can't hear it in the recording, but at the start, she was told, yes, you can talk, which meant that she was being guided.
Now, today, Russia's defence ministry has strongly denied claims the Syrian government was behind a chemical attack in the rebel-occupied town of Douma. The ministry adds it's ready to send chemical experts to prove otherwise. Reports about the attack came from the controversial anti-government activist group, the White Helmets, who are claiming it's killed dozens. Following the unconfirmed reports, the US has already called on the Syrian government and its backers, including Russia, to be held accountable. The US president wasted no time to unleash a barrage of accusations. In a series of tweets here, Donald Trump pointed out that the area is encircled by the Syrian army, also accusing Russia and Iran of backing Assad. He added the attack was a humanitarian disaster for, quote, no reason whatsoever. But this lack of motive is now prompting questions over who exactly is to blame, as Murad Gazdiev explains.
East Ghouta is almost over. 90% has been liberated by Syria's government. The Army of Islam, Nusra, Al-Qaeda affiliate, other Islamists, they've lost, opting to take the buses to rebel territories.
Just a montage here of how all of the Western-backed and Israel-backed militants are being shown the road.
Surrendered, and negotiations are underway for the handover of the last rebel stronghold.
That's why
victory,
the new chemical attack accusations.
Assad goes against all reason and logic. He's won this battle and launches chemical weapons at civilians. According to his enemies, he can't help it.
The United States continues to use all efforts available to hold those who use chemical weapons in Syria and otherwise accountable. The regime's history of using chemical weapons against its own people is not in dispute.
Russia warned repeatedly that this may happen. They had intelligence a month ago that rebels were preparing to stage these attacks. Why not? If they can't fight, if they can't win, why not try to provoke an international intervention? It's worked before. That is, not to say we're jumping to conclusions.
By all means, these allegations are false. For a very simple reason. Now I have a landslide victory and I'm regaining all the territories I lost before. Why would the Syrian regime commit a war crime? There is no possible reason for this. In addition, there is an evidence that all the stores in the reclaimed territories were having several stores of chemical weapons controlled by the terrorists. A third evidence is that 2 weeks ago, the Syrian government said there are alerts that the terrorists are planning for a chemical attack on the disputed territories just to undermine and put pressure on the Syrian regime. I mean, by all means, why should I, as a regime, use this when I have to keep a low profile and not provoke the international community? It's not logical.
Now, the largest owner of TV stations in the US is facing a backlash at the moment over a promotional announcement warning against fake news. Presenters on dozens of its channels were made to read identical scripted messages.
Sharing of biased and false
news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
You get the picture. Well, the conservative-leaning Sinclair Group owns almost 200 stations across America, reaching almost half of all US households. The broadcaster claims the project served no political agenda, though, adding that they do not understand the criticism that they have received. However, the initiative has drawn anger across mainstream media, with critics warning that the move only strengthens fears that popular outlets are actually spreading fake news. The US president stepped in, though, to defend the Sinclair Group. However, telling news organisations what to say and do is an accusation we have heard before, as Jacqueline Vuga explains.
Russian media is a beacon of honesty, truth, and integrity. We work hard to maintain our outstanding level of work, unlike foreign outlets who lie. I love Putin. Ну что, так нормально?
Замечательно, товарищ.
Okay, спасибо, товарищ. That's the assumption many in the West make about Russian media. Fully controlled broadcasts with anchors and correspondents forced to read pre-prepared scripts. No details left to chance. So much of it is state-funded after all. But in the US, where so many channels are corporate-owned, it must be different, right? The Sinclair Broadcast Group, which owns almost 200 television stations and broadcasts on around 600 channels, proudly proclaims in its mission statement that it provides stories that make a difference.
The key to our success is content choices. We're alert, protect, and empower our audience on all platforms.
Well, in its recent promos, there's not much of a choice or a difference, it seems.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities, the El Paso, Las Cruces communities, Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
As you can see, anchors from different channels reading the same script there, which was, by the way, leaked to some media outlets, and it looks like they only had to fill in their names.
Hi, I am A.
And I am B.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our Northwest communities.
And if you look closely, you'll notice an absence of certain colors in their wardrobes. That's no accident. They were given specific instructions on how to dress in order to look neutral.
The goal is to look apolitical, neutral, non-partisan, yet professional. Black or charcoal suits for men, females should wear yellow, gold, magenta, cyan, but avoid red, blue, or purple.
Because everyone knows that magenta is the color that gives you and your bias away. Apart from these promos, Sinclair also distributes what's known as must-run segments to their stations. So while the propaganda finger is so often pointed at Russia, it looks like we actually have quite a bit to learn. Starting with my wardrobe.
Jacqueline Vuga reporting there. Now, still ahead for you this hour, Hungary is heading to the polls today in parliamentary elections. We'll have a look at who's expected to win that just after the break.
We try to deconstruct all these manipulated dichotomies, showing the world that Islam is a religion, and it's a peaceful religion, and it's possible to be a practicing Muslim, to believe that the Quran is the word of God, and at the same time be a member of secular societies. It is possible.
I've played for many clubs over the years, so I know the game inside out. Football isn't only about what happens on the pitch or the final score. It's about the passion from the fans. It's the age of the super manager, billionaire owners, and spending 220 million on one player. But it's an experience like nothing else on earth. And because I want to share what I think and what I know about the beautiful game, I agreed to one more transfer. And this is my new team.
Hello again. Now, at least 10 Palestinians were killed by Israeli gunfire on the Gaza border on Friday. It came after thousands of protesters staged a massive anti-occupation protest.
We're now maybe 100 meters only far away from the fence. You can see the crowds, you can see the protesters. More than 100,000 Palestinians have been here. Tensions are running high right now. The Israeli army started to shoot randomly. More Palestinians are getting injured while the ambulances are here to take all the injuries that were now injured from the Israeli army by live bullets, live ammunition, and tear gas canisters. This is one of the injuries that was injured just right now from the rubber bullets and the tear gas. The Red Cross ambulance and all the medics are trying to save all the injuries. You see the Palestinian protesters are running away from the tear gas canisters that were thrown just right now on the protesters. So these are unexploded tear gas canisters that are being targeted and shooted on the Palestinian protesters. Thousands of hundreds of Palestinians have been here, and we saw Palestinian protesters burning U.S. flags and Israeli flags, and also saying slogans against the Israelis and the Americans.
Local reporter Hind Kadari there. Well, a wave of rallies began at the end of March, with organisers claiming they will last for weeks. During the past 7 days alone, more than 20 Palestinians have been killed, with many more wounded during what's been called the Great March of Return. Several journalists have been injured too in the clashes, one of whom later died. Yasser Mutaga here worked for a local TV production company. Gaza health officials said he was shot while filming close to the border and then died in hospital. In fact, in this photo, you can see he was wearing his press jacket. The Israeli military, though, says it only fired at those it called instigators of the violence. However, a spokesperson for the IDF posted on Twitter saying that rioters did attempt to cross the security fence and set off explosive devices in an attempted terrorist attack. Meanwhile, 14 of the 15 members of the UN Security Council backed a call for an independent investigation into all the deaths caused by Israel's use of live ammunition during the Gaza protests. It was blocked, though, by only one nation, the United States. We discussed the issue with an expert from Palestine and also with an expert from Israel.
No record that mentioned that there was fire from the Palestinian side. There was few who could cross the fences to hang the Palestinian flag on the fences only. And they were only throwing stones or burning tire wheels on the borders. If the Israelis are saying that, why not accepting with the Americans the inquiry commission to come to Gaza to investigate of the killing of the 29 people and the injuries happened here?
Some of them were actually Hamas fighters and Hamas terrorists. And most of those who were killed last week were among them, was people who are paid by Hamas and actually work for Hamas as terrorists. So what do they want? To organize terror attacks against Israel and what? And that Israel should sit doing nothing against them?
Now, Hungarians are voting in parliamentary elections this Sunday, with the ruling party widely tipped to clinch another majority. Viktor Orban's Fidesz party is seeking a third consecutive term in power, and polls are suggesting, ahead of the vote, that his right-wing party will retain its two-thirds majority in parliament. Viktor Orban has been in power since 2010 and previously served as Prime Minister between 1998 and 2002. His hardline stance on the EU and immigration has created friction, though, within the bloc. Hungary opposed the EU's refugee resettlement scheme, and Orban's administration has also passed a number of controversial laws. And a political expert told us a win in Sunday's election is unlikely to ease tensions with Brussels.
If Viktor Orban and the Fidesz succeeds at the election, it means that they're going to probably continue their anti-immigration agenda and they're going to continue their conflicts with the European Union, of course, because a success means an empowerment by the voters. So there's going to be probably more conflicts with the European Union, but it could be also happen that it's going to be a symptom for European leaders and they try to stop this Orban phenomenon before other countries would follow this example.
Now, people in a district of Paris are claiming that their lives are being ruined at the moment by gangs of young migrants. They do say that drugs, thefts and fights on the streets are making it dangerous to live there. Charlotte Dubinsky reports.
As you exit the metro in much of Paris's 18th arrondissement, the first thing you notice are groups of young men. Locals claim they're migrants, mostly from North Africa. They say they formed gangs and generally wreak havoc. Theft is common, and it's clear even the police view this area as problematic. Within minutes, we're offered advice from an officer.
Faites attention parce que c'est pas les super quartiers. Voilà, soyez juste prudents, okay?
We see police stopping young men and searching their bags. Locals say they're being terrorised by a group of around 60 juveniles, migrants from Morocco. But because they're teenagers, the police rarely do anything more than give them a caution before letting them go again.
Drinking, drug, fighting between them like with knives, you know.
What time at night? When it gets dark?
9 o'clock, 10 until around the morning, like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, you know. And the police, like the guard, like the police coming and do nothing with them is like young, you know. If somebody pass like you lady passing with your bag, like, you know, it's coming around 3 or 4 around you, like, you know. You talk with 1 person, 2 persons. Yeah. And you rob you, like, you know, you take your phones, like, easy, take it, you know, easy. And the problem that is coming from Morocco, like, you know.
This is part of the gang he was referring to. They look like young children, but locals say they've had enough. More than 1,500 have signed a petition for action. Those who know the area say residents are taking precautions.
C'est-à-dire qu'en fait, on connaît les codes quand on habite ici.
Si je viens chez ma fille, je ne m'habille pas de la même façon que si je vais au quartier du Louvre.
The city has tried to deal with the problem. It's even allocated €700,000 for a new centre to try and get these children off the streets. But it seems most showed no interest and have refused any support. It seems they prefer to live on the streets, surviving on the misery of others. Charlotte Dubinsky, RT, Paris.
Thanks for being with us tonight. We'll be back with more news and the headlines in 35 minutes.
For our World Cup 2018 coverage, we've signed one of the greatest goalkeepers of all time. But there was one more question.
And by the way, who's going to be our coach?
Guys, I know you are nervous. It's a huge tournament and a huge amount of pressure. Cameraman, you have to dominate the center of the pitch. But I'll be with you. And we'll show the world the great game. The greatest game. You are the rock at the back. Nobody gets past to you. We need you to get down the wing. Let's go. Hello, I'm Jose Mourinho, and I'm really happy to join the RT team for the 2018 World Cup in Russia.
Meet the special one.
Come on, drop the cliche.
Meet Jose Mourinho, the RT team's latest addition.
Make the letters bigger.
Is that any better, Jose?
Good.
On the shores of the Mississippi River, New Orleans, Louisiana. The city is known around the world for its jazz. The famous musician Louis Armstrong and Sidney Bechet were born here. In Treme, an African-American neighborhood, the Bethel Church is packed this morning. A funeral. Terrell Rudolph, 35, was shot and killed during what appears to be a revenge hit. They are fairly common in the area. Orma, the mother of the victim, has already lost a relative in a shootout. Guns kill almost one person every day within the black community.
And believe it to me, it shall never die.
Tareen, the victim's brother, is resigned.
It was murdered in downtown New Orleans, unfortunately. You know, I mean, there's murder rates going on around the city, around the United States, but, you know, that's an unfortunate situation. But here in a better place, that's what counts.
According to Caribbean tradition, the funeral must be joyful. The funeral march turns into a celebration. Dances, jazz, and alcohol accompany the deceased on his last journey. Even Orma starts to dance. With this little boy, the victim's son.
You know, we don't like boring films. We like send out the right way, you know? That's right.
The men spin the coffin 3 times in honor of the neighborhood of the deceased, the 3rd District. In this town, the murder rate has increased by 30% this year. New Orleans is one of the most dangerous cities in the United States. It's also the one considered as the most joyful. Its nickname is the Big Easy. But Hurricane Katrina struck Louisiana in August 2005, and it literally sunk New Orleans. Winds over 190 miles per hour, floods over several feet. 1,000 were killed. 100,000 were forced to leave. New Orleans falls into chaos and poverty.
You got 20,000 structures like this in New Orleans.
In the neighborhoods hit by the floods, criminality exploded. Especially on the eastern part of the city, where murders happen on a daily basis. So simple citizens like Brennan gear up to defend themselves.
I keep a lot of this stuff handy just in case, again, something crazy happens, active shooter.
A young millionaire, Sidney Torres, fights to increase security in the touristic neighborhoods. His weapons? Those little connected electric cars.
It's a drug deal that they said was happening, and that's, I'm looking on the GPS right now to see where the machine is.
Built on swamps, New Orleans is surrounded by alligators. There are more alligators than people. They are everywhere.
That's what they call death row right there. Right there, you're being detained.
Plagued by violence and poverty, the Big Easy is falling into chaos. In Treme, Tareen welcomes us inside his mother's home, in the house where he grew up with his brother killed by gun violence.
Okay. All right, so that was the RT International News, and then we have a transition into this documentary about gun violence in New Orleans. Okay. This is where I kind of start seeing some of the, I look at I wouldn't say this is anti-American propaganda, but it's anti-gun to a certain extent. When you see a lot of these documentaries, it's always about the gun, not the class of the, in America, people are broken into different classes. It's where they gain a level of control over people by putting them into categories and then explaining why there's poverty in these cities. There's poverty in Chicago where black on black crime, and Larry Elder points this out pretty emphatically with the numbers, especially when it comes to police officers shooting black, what the percentage is of what them shooting white people. All right. And then how the media just completely spins it in a specific direction. So what we have here is, they say, due to gun violence. He lost his brother due to gun violence. That is just a generalization. Okay? It could have been, he could have been stabbed, or he could have been beaten to death. Okay? Black people are killing other black people at an alarming rate, mostly because I believe that they realize that there's only certain amount of resources that are going to be coming to them, especially if they live in a place like New Orleans, or they live in a lot of these. There's a place not too far from there. In Louisiana, like, I know that, On Contact with Chris Hedges. He spoke to a guy there who was part of that community and what they were doing to prepare for what was being done to them. See, this is the people that realize what's happening, and they try to actually do something about it. And they won't say that it's gun violence. It just people already want to kill each other. It's just been put into it's just out there. The destructive culture, the destructive movies, the violence, the chemical castration from pharmaceuticals. We see Broward County, Florida being the epicenter for these opioids. There was a documentary done about it. A lot of Russian documentaries here, it points out what the real issues are. In this one, the guy spins it into gun violence. No, black people are killing other black people, and that's just the way that it goes. Now, white people kill black people, and black people kill white people, but nowhere near the percentage of what we're seeing with the black on black crime. Like in Chicago, it all gets glossed over. They focus on the methods of which people kill each other, but not the real reason why they're killing each other. So this entire narrative where they push it to the gun, I believe that it's, and others, but for me, my main focus and the reason why I think that they're doing it is because they don't want people to know how far that we degenerated to the point where the drugs that the intelligence agencies slip into, we saw it happen in South Central Los Angeles. Kill the Messenger movie about these things. And then people just start killing each other because they are trying to steal from someone and they get killed, or they're trying to do good in a society, and there's a lot of black people that understand and try to do good in society, and they get murdered. They get murdered. We got Dr. King murdered. You got Malcolm X, who a lot of people would get the wrong information. Malcolm X said, if you don't watch it, you'll be I'm paraphrasing, you'll be supporting those that are doing the oppressing and killing, and you'll be against those who are being killed and oppressed. Because he said back then, this is fake. They're lying to you, they're lying to all of us. You need to understand that. You need to understand that this is what they're doing. And then, of course, he was erased, subtracted from the equation. And then the chilling factor gets into play, and then they said, well, they killed him and King, then they got no problem killing, the guy who would replace. Or the woman who would replace. A lot of these, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, they're all minions of the system. They're allowed to do some good, but mostly it's there to enslave the minds of those who are already enslaved by the economic structure. already enslaved by the economic structure. And so Katrina comes along, there was gun confiscation, and then these communities are still not back to where they were before, because that was the goal. Have a destructive event happen, plausible deniability, and bringing these neighborhoods back. Never did. Any one of these, a number of these different people that have spoken out. I think even Negan, who was the mayor of he's in jail now. He's in jail. So Ray Negan, I think. So the bottom line is that there are a lot of good documentaries that point out what is really going on. But is that to change these things? Because most Americans don't think that there's really anything wrong, especially the wealthy, the 1%, the business owners, the talking heads, the people that in that, if you heard that one of the last segments there where the Sinclair Broadcasting had all of them read the same lines to get everybody on the same page. And we've heard that before. We've seen the YouTube videos where people say the same thing on all of the broadcast. If it's Fox, if it's an NBC, a CBS affiliate, they're all saying the same thing because they're all getting the same talking points. They're all getting the same directives, narratives to keep the dummies dumb. And again, you've got the business owners and the people that are really, really making money that won't even buck the system because things are just way too good for them. Way too good. The local weather guy, woman, they're not going to buck the system. The weather person's not going to say, yeah, that stuff they're spraying in the air there, I've heard some things, it's not good. Never going to say that. Never, ever going to say that. They would lose their job. It's not what they're paid to talk about. If it's up there, it's a cloud. That's it. So they never, ever really get to the issues and the problems that are plaguing America. And so killed by gun violence. So he really, he was killed by a weapon, but the reason why he died is because society and the diseased death culture with drugs and all of the bad things that have proliferated in America over the last 25, 30, 40 years have really taken its toll. And so these different groups of people are living lives that are not fulfilling. They love their families. I mean, you even see, like, after the 35-year-old guy was killed, they're out in the street and they're dancing. Not that somebody would think that's weird. I thought it was kind of weird, but then you think about it, it's like that's what the culture down there does. It's about music. It's about this. It's about that. And so they are mourning through song and cultural diffusing of the horrific event that that took this guy's life. But make no mistake, it wasn't gun violence. It was just violence. And violent communities come from the destruction of that community economically. And when economically a community is affected, then people start killing each other. People start killing each other. The parents have to go. There's Larry Elders points out that there's a lot of single parents, and that the government back in the 60s and 70s paid welfare to women to not get married, and if they did get married, then they would not get those, the hush money. So it really destroyed families. A woman can't really control if they have, a kid that realizes that and will stay away from bad people. And you see it all the time. Certain kids in the movies, there's one kid that's least likely to get involved, and then there's the one kid who will get involved with the gangs and will get involved with drugs, and again, there's no way you're going to get rid of guns in society. The bad organizations, the hidden hand, the destructive elite class agenda to destroy the middle class and the poor while giving them welfare has been underway, and it continues to be underway. So there's no hate speech, there's just speech. There's no gun violence, there's just violence. When you start labeling violence like midget violence, then there's midgets that are being assaulted, midgets uprise, and then you have an army of midgets or little people that are running around jihading, big people. There are, again, no gun violence, just violence. No hate speech, just speech. Of course, it's how it's interpreted. And then, of course, the media will assist you in learning how to... can you hand me that laptop there? Sorry. But the media will assist you in learning about things that you don't know, and by whatever means necessary. And so New Orleans is not any different than any other inner city. There are the incredibly poor and economically challenged, and that turns into people killing each other for whatever resources are available. So it's not the gun that killed this guy. It was the economic challenges that they seek. And when the collapse comes, and even the people that had money don't really have it anymore, then they'll start killing each other for whatever they have. And so it's not about guns. It's just about economic warfare that the Bank of Americas and the Santanders, who destroyed the island of Puerto Rico, raped and pillaged, got them into debt, and then Trump's down there throwing fucking Scott towels at them like baseballs. Here you go, I'm Donald. I said some horrible things to you and to the woman who was running the show down here, but I'm not going to attack the bankers that raped and pillaged and destroyed the island of Puerto Rico because I'm their friend. Just like Obama was the friend of the Wall Street crew, the Goldman Sachs and the J.P. Morgans and the Chase, just they are your masters. And that's the way it goes. And if you keep pointing the finger at the guy who was paid to go up there and lie to you for these organizations, then shame on you. You're a dumb fuck. And you should probably be killed because you're not smart enough to figure it out. And then maybe there would be more smart people who would figure out that your property, that you're a live stock being sold and traded on the stock market exchange. So, there you have it in a nutshell. But we've got all the entertainment that we need. Keep us rolling and rolling along.
Did you already talk about Zuckerberg?
Oh, yeah, Zuckerberg. Thanks.
You didn't talk about Zuckerberg?
Zuckerberg is, as I said any number of times, is being sold to the commoners as the face of Facebook, the guy who made it all happen. And I don't believe that he is the face of Facebook at all. The face of Facebook are the intelligence agencies, the same ones that created Google, the same ones that created, Twitter, all of these platforms, LinkedIn, all of them. So it's all a database to get you in, to find out who you are, to find out what your thoughts are, to find out whether you're a dumb moron who posts, I just made a number 2, and now I'm going to get some lunch, and then I'm going to go out later, so if you want to come by and rob me, that's cool. So Google and their employees now that are upset because Google is in line with the Pentagon now, which they've always really truly been. It's just becoming more apparent. The veil is being lifted, the apocalypse. So people are pushing back now that, because Google's original mantra was don't be evil. Well, that's what they were created to be from the very beginning. That's why they're thriving now. That's why every web page that you go to, if you look down in the left-hand corner, it's always some kind of Google Analytics, Google, sandwich, Google pasta, whatever it is. Everything runs through and funnels and bottlenecks through this system of full spectrum domination. So those of you over at Google that are upset because Google's helping the Pentagon now, you're probably going to get fired soon if you don't shut your fucking mouths. But if you want to keep talking and keep making awareness, more power to you. If you have integrity as a sentient being, then keep on doing it. And when they shit can you, you'll create the ungoogle.com and then just shove it up their asses. But everything they do, just like Amazon Web Service, storing CIA data and all that other stuff on their platforms. All of these people, every single one of them, have been hand chosen, just like Bill Gates, like Zuckerberg. And what do they need? Like a non-threatening, Jew-fro guy like Zuckerberg to be up there and be like, I really like technology. And even though he called all the users dumb fucks for putting all of their information up there. And it's true. Shame on you. Fool me once. Shame on you. Fool me twice. Shame on me. And the American people and the people of every corporate / country will put whatever they want out there because they got nothing to hide. They got nothing to hide. And they hope that that's what your stance is, that you've got nothing to hide. Because it'll be easier when the hammer drops. Again, Trump threatens Putin, animal Assad over Syrian chemical attack for the third one that they said happened, which most likely didn't. Russia warns of grave response if the U.S. launches strikes. So we are on the precipice of a hot, hot war. And you better get a clean pair of shorts when it happens, because it's not going to be good for anybody. And of course, as I read in the beginning, Supreme Court rules cops can kill even non-threatening people as long as they say, I was scared and junk. I was fearing for my life and whatnot. So I killed the non-threatening beast. Iran hit by cyber attack that left U.S. flag on all of their computer screens. Facebook donated to 46 of the 55 members on the committee that will question Mark Zuckerberg. Drug maker will soon hold the patent on THC and CBD as cancer cures. The dark cult with billionaires, stars, and sex slavery allegations. The best explanation for the Skripal drama is still food poisoning. California bill creates fact checkers to filter your online content. How China can win a trade war in one move. You can find all that over at blacklistednews.com. Thanks for joining me today here on Cold Reality Radio on the UCY.TV broadcasting network on the east coast of America. Stay tuned for all of the...
There is only one holistic system of systems.
I will MK Ultra ya, put the MK scope on ya. If the MK hits you, it's guaranteed to open ya. The 57 20 rounds a minute, try to stop them. Don't put that on your wish list, that's retarded babble. Protesters make the hit list soon as they start to rabble. They are nothing but fishes in the barrel. It doesn't have to be Christmas for a carol. Some decorate with ornamental decorum. Some perform Shakana on Hanukkah and Purim. That's where my job come in. I am a blessing to the mercenary. For the corporation selling weapons to them. Any potential competitor stepping to them. I'm authorized to knock them out and stick a GPS into them. They want to sell uranium to Iran.